Hello, Lifers. It's Jason Love with Jason Loves Life. I got this interesting comment, and we're trying to answer a lot of comments, and I responded to this comment, and I unfortunately can't read the comment here, but you can read it right here and see what they're saying. But the gist of it is that learning disabilities are different than autism, and that I'm trying to think of if I think that's true or not, but it doesn't matter if I think it's true or not, because their point later was that I'm not an expert, and the reality is I'm not an expert. I do have a psych degree. I did work with kids most of my time there. I worked within the schools. I worked within day treatment facilities, and then I went on to have a career in mental health for about 5 years, working with mostly youth, but with a huge variety, everything from autism to almost anything you could name. We had, Tourette's. We had student, or they call them clients there, with like extreme obsessive compulsive disorder, like so much so that couldn't function in a normal day-to-day life. And this was a living where they lived there, and I can go on and on about my issues with that, the good things about it, the bad things about it, but that's not for this video. This video is talking about the fact that, yes, I'm not an expert. I don't claim to be an expert. If you're getting your information from YouTube and making life decisions on that, I do not do that. And especially don't listen to this commenter, because they obviously don't know what they're talking about either. They're trying to pretend like they can make a diagnosis based off of videos. You cannot do that. And there's actually a lot of the things that they said later on, specifically about they talked about Everett's, he doesn't have any obsessions, which he does. It's just that we never really did any videos on it. And actually we kind of did, because he had obsessions with stairs for years. He loved stairs and the repetition and going up and down stairs. But for some reason they thought they could, tell me what my child's diagnosis. And that's one of the reasons, I guess, two things. First of all, get your diagnosis from a professional. We asked Everett's speech therapist early on. He was probably like 2, whether we should try to get him diagnosed. Then you had to get his pediatrician here where we are. The pediatrician had to give a basically saying, yes, we should have this you should have him evaluated for insurance reasons. And it's still, even with insurance, it's really hard. And then we had a psychologist do the evaluation. She diagnosed him officially as autism, and then we took him to he had to get diagnosed through the school so he could get support in school. Again, diagnosed. His speech therapist all said yes, that diagnosis fits. His occupational therapist says it. His teacher says it. So it's like this. That's really what you need to do, is you need to actually have professionals tell you, you can't self-diagnose your child, or diagnose your child. But the issue is that not everyone can have access. So I understand where you're kind of like, okay, let's sort of follow this journey and kind of learn about autism. And one of the greatest places I've learned the most is following groups of self-advocacy. I find that very it's overwhelming, and I find it intimidating at times, just because there's a lot of stuff in the culture that becomes like the norm, how to speak, things like that. Diagnosis, sort of, they have a lot of anger towards the term Asperger's because of the history, and I get it. I totally, and I don't use that term, but I also understand that people's ignorance on it isn't always an easy thing to give up. So anyways, that was a little bit of a aside. The other thing I want to talk about is people trying to tell you about your child's diagnosis. So once your child is diagnosed with autism, Everett's able to how to phrase this. Everett, early on, people were like, he does not have autism, even though he was diagnosed. And it was a lot of people who didn't know what they're talking about. And I think this happens a lot of families, especially especially if they have kids who are verbal, and make eye contact, sort of these things that people stereotypical sort of force onto autism, and not realize, like, oh, that's not, like, they just have the wrong definition. They don't understand what they're talking about. And so we got that quite a bit early on. Most of my parents most of my family kind of, like, I could tell they thought that and didn't say a lot. A few of them were like, no, he doesn't. But the reality is get the diagnosis. It's important to get a diagnosis if that's in fact the if it's accurate. And if you're not sure, just attempt to get it and then figure out what's going on, because getting the speech therapy, getting occupational therapy, getting different types of therapy that can help your child is really important. So apologize for making this one so long, but and I don't normally respond to trolls. This one just got it was interesting to me that they thought they could diagnose from a video, and yet were trying to tell me that I didn't know what I was talking about. And again, I'm not an expert, but I do know my child, and I know his diagnosis, and I know other people with the diagnosis, and have been sort of active within, sort of in the shadows, in the sense of like I let following along with people who are on the spectrum and kind of like learning from them without necessarily, I don't have anything to add. So just listening, which I think is something a lot of parents don't do, taking the time to learn and not necessarily make it about them. So yeah, I appreciate everyone, and all my friends on here. They do a great job of that. So appreciate you all. And I think we'll be doing more of these where we just respond to comments. So subscribe if that's what you're interested in. We'll be throwing some other videos in here. We're still trying to figure out what we want to do with the channel, and the kids are going back to summer school, so I'll have a little more time to make videos. All right. Subscribe, like, and have a great day.